There is a phone call that changes everything. The kind of call where you see the name on your screen and your entire body goes cold because you know. You just know that after years of silence, after years of being told you were nothing, they're calling because they need something. They need you. My name is Dr. Sophia Chen. I am 36 years old. I am a cardiothoracic surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. I perform open heart surgeries. I save lives. I make $420,000 a year. And 14 years ago, my parents told me I would be nothing without them. They told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life, that I would fail, that I would come crawling back, begging for their help, that I would regret ever choosing my own path. They were wrong about everything, except for one thing. I did come back. Not crawling, not begging, but I came back. Because 8 months ago, my mother called me after 14 years of complete silence, 14 years of no birthdays, no holidays, no acknowledgement that I even existed. She called because she needed money, a lot of money. And the way I responded to that call is something I think about every single day. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something for me. If this story is already resonating with you, if you've ever felt invisible to the people who were supposed to see you most, hit that like button right now. Not for me, but so YouTube knows to share this story with someone else who needs to hear it. And subscribe to this channel if you want more real stories about family, survival, and what happens when the people who underestimated you realize they were wrong. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Your city, your country, your story if you want to share it. We're building a community here of people who refused to stay small just because someone else needed them to. Now, let me take you back to where this all started. I need to tell you about my parents to help you understand what happened. My parents immigrated to this country from Taiwan when they were in their late 20s. My father, David Chen, became an engineer. My mother, Helen, worked as a pharmacist and then stayed home after I was born. They worked hard, really hard. They saved every penny. They bought a modest house in Newton, Massachusetts, good school district, safe neighborhood. They planned every detail of their lives with precision. And they planned every detail of my life, too. From the time I was 6 years old, I knew exactly what my future was supposed to look like. I would study hard, get perfect grades, go to a prestigious university, study business or law, something practical and lucrative, get a high-paying job, marry a successful Chinese man from a good family, have children, take care of my parents in their old age. That was the path. The only acceptable path. And for most of my childhood, I followed it perfectly. I was the model daughter. Straight A's from first grade through high school. Math competitions, science fairs, piano recitals. I was accepted to every university I applied to. But somewhere around age 17, something shifted inside me. I became interested in medicine. Not business, not law. Medicine. I volunteered at Massachusetts General Hospital through a school program. I shadowed doctors in the emergency room. I watched a cardiac surgeon repair a child's heart and felt something click inside me that I'd never felt before. This was what I wanted, not because my parents wanted it, but because I wanted it. I told my parents at dinner one evening during my senior year of high school. I said, I want to go to medical school. I want to become a surgeon. My father put down his chopsticks. He looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Pure disappointment mixed with something else. Anger. He said, no, just no, like I had suggested something obscene. I said, what do you mean no? I have the grades, I have the test scores, I can get into medical school. My father said, Medical school is 12 years of training, 12 years of debt, 12 years of your life are wasted when you could be earning money, getting married, and starting a family. My mother nodded. She said, Sophia, we didn't come to this country and work this hard for you to become a doctor. Doctors work terrible hours. You'll never have time for a family. You'll be in debt forever. This is not practical. I said, but it's what I want to do. My mother's face went hard. She said, what you want doesn't matter. We are your parents. We know what's best. You will study business. You will get a good corporate job. You will do what we say. I felt something break inside me that night. I said quietly, what if I don't? My father stood up from the table. He said, then you are not our daughter anymore. I thought he was exaggerating. I thought it was just anger talking. Asian parents are strict. Everyone knows that. They threaten. They don't follow through. I was wrong. I applied to medical school without telling them. I took my MCAT in secret. I used my guidance counselor's office address for all correspondence. I applied for scholarships and federal loans. I did everything quietly, carefully, building an escape route they couldn't see. I got accepted to 3 medical schools, good ones, Johns Hopkins, University of Pennsylvania, and Columbia. I chose Columbia, New York City, close enough to visit if they wanted, far enough to build my own life. I had a scholarship that would cover 60% of tuition. I would need loans for the rest, a lot of loans, but I could do it. I could do it without them. 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave for medical school, I told my parents. I waited until after dinner. My hands were shaking. I said, I need to tell you something important. They looked up, waiting. I said, I applied to medical school. I got accepted to Columbia. I got a scholarship. I'm leaving in 3 weeks. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I've ever heard. Then my mother stood up. She didn't yell. She didn't shout. Her voice was completely calm, and that made it worse. She said, if you walk out that door to go to medical school, you are not welcome back. You will not be our daughter. We will not pay for anything. We will not speak to you. You will be dead to us. My father nodded. He said, your mother is right. You are choosing to disrespect us, to throw away everything we've built for you. If you make this choice, we make ours. I looked at both of them. I said, I'm doing this, with or without your blessing. My father said, then you're doing it without us. Pack your things. You have until the end of the week. I thought they would change their minds. I thought my mother would intervene. I thought somebody would stop this from happening. Nobody did. I packed everything I owned into 3 suitcases and 5 boxes. I loaded them into my 12-year-old Honda that I had bought with money from my part-time job at the library. The morning I left, my mother wouldn't look at me. She stood in the kitchen with her back to me, washing dishes that were already clean. My father had already left for work. I stood in the doorway of the house I had grown up in and said, I love you both. I hope one day you'll understand. My mother said nothing. She just kept washing the same plate over and over. I drove away. And for 14 years, I heard nothing from them. Not a call, not an email, not a birthday card. Nothing. It was like I had died, like I had never existed. I need to tell you what those 14 years looked like, because they were not easy. They were brutal. Medical school is hard enough when you have support, when you have parents who can help with emergencies, who can send you money when your laptop dies, who can be a safety net when everything goes wrong. I had none of that. I had myself, and about $260,000 in student loans by the time I finished. First year of medical school, I lived in the cheapest apartment I could find in Washington Heights. It had mice. The heat barely worked. I wear 3 layers to sleep in winter. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for most meals. I studied 20 hours a day. I had no social life. I had no money for anything except books, rent, and food. Second year, I got a small research stipend. It paid $4,000 for the year. I cried when I got that check. I bought a winter coat that actually kept me warm. Third and fourth year, clinical rotations. I worked in hospitals, learning, watching, and assisting. I slept 4 hours a night. I missed every holiday. I had no one to call on my birthday. I thought about my parents every single day. I wondered if they ever thought about me, if they regretted their choice, if they were proud or still angry. I graduated from medical school in the top 8% of my class. I matched into a competitive surgical residency at Mass General, back in Boston, 2 hours from where my parents lived. I didn't tell them. They wouldn't have cared. Nobody from my family was at my graduation. I sat in the audience, watching other graduates hug their parents, take photos, and celebrate. I sat alone. But I had done it. Residency was 5 more years of hell, 100-hour weeks, learning to operate, learning to make life and death decisions, learning to function on no sleep and constant stress. I was good at it, really good. My attending physicians noticed. They pushed me toward cardiothoracic surgery, the hardest specialty, the longest training, but the most rewarding. I said yes. 2 more years of fellowship, learning to operate on hearts, learning to hold someone's life in my hands and not shake. By the time I finished all my training, I was 34 years old. I was $310,000 in debt from loans. I had no family, no support system, just myself and the knowledge I had earned through pain and sacrifice. And then I got a job, a real job, attending cardiothoracic surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. Starting salary, $400,000 a year. Within 2 years, I was making $420,000. I was paying down my loans aggressively. I bought a condo in Cambridge. I started building an actual life. I thought about my parents sometimes, less than I used to. The wound had scarred over. It still hurt if I pressed on it, but I had learned not to press. I assumed I would never hear from them again. I was wrong. 8 months ago, my phone rang at 6:30 in the morning. I was getting ready for work. I had a surgery scheduled for 8 a.m., a valve replacement on a 62-year-old woman. An unknown number, Massachusetts area code. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. A woman's voice. Older, tentative. She said, "Sophia?" I knew immediately. I hadn't heard that voice in 14 years, but I knew it instantly. "Mom?" "Yes, it's me." I sat down on my couch. My hands started shaking. I said, "Why are you calling?" A long pause. Then she said, "Your father and I need to talk to you. It's important." I felt my chest tighten. I said, "Is someone dying?" "No," she said quickly. "No, nothing like that. But we need help. Financial help." And there it was. After 14 years of silence, after disowning me, after telling me I was dead to them, they needed money. I said, very calmly, "What kind of financial help?" She explained, slowly, with obvious discomfort. My father lost his job 3 years ago. At 65 years old, he couldn't find another one in his field. They'd been living on savings and my mother's pension. Those savings were now gone. They were 4 months behind on their mortgage. The bank was starting foreclosure proceedings. They needed $55,000 immediately. I sat there, holding the phone, processing what I was hearing. I said, "Let me make sure I understand. You haven't spoken to me in 14 years. You disowned me. You told me I was dead to you. And now you're calling because you need money." Her voice got smaller. She said, "Sophia, we had nowhere else to turn." I felt something cold settle in my chest. I said, "What about the extended family? Aunts, uncles, cousins, all those people who agreed with you when you disowned me?" She said, "We've asked everyone. Nobody has this kind of money." I laughed. Actually laughed. A bitter sound that surprised even me. I said, "But I do. The daughter you disowned because she wanted to be a doctor. I have the money you need." "Yes," she said quietly. I said, "Were you ever going to call me if you didn't need money? Were you ever going to apologize?" Long silence. Then she said, "I don't know." At least she was honest. I said, "I need to think about this. I'll call you back in 3 days." I hung up. And I sat in my apartment for an hour just thinking about what to do. I want to be honest about what went through my mind over those 3 days. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted them to feel even a fraction of what I felt when they told me I was dead to them. Part of me wanted revenge. But another part of me, the part that had spent 14 years learning to save lives, to see people at their most vulnerable, to understand that humans are complicated and flawed and sometimes do terrible things out of fear, that part of me felt something else. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. I talked to my therapist. I'd been in therapy for 6 years, working through abandonment, working through the pain of building a life alone. My therapist said, if you help them, it needs to be on your terms, with boundaries. This isn't about rescuing them. This is about deciding if you want them in your life. I called a financial advisor, talked through the implications, made sure I could afford it without destroying my own stability. I called them back on the 3rd day. I said, "I'll give you the money." My mother gasped. Relief flooded her voice. She said, "Thank you. Thank you so much, Sophia. We'll pay you back. I cut her off. I said, "I'm not finished. I'll give you the money, but there are conditions." She went quiet, waiting. I said, "First, this is a gift, not a loan. I'm not doing this expecting repayment. I'm doing this so you don't lose your home. But you need to acknowledge that you were wrong, that disowning me was wrong, that choosing pride over your daughter was wrong." Silence. I continued. "Second, we go to family therapy. I will pay for it, but we will sit in a room with a professional and we will talk about what happened. We will face it. You don't get to pretend the past 14 years didn't happen." My mother said softly, "Okay." I said, "Third, you will never, ever tell me that my career choice was wrong. You will acknowledge that I made the right choice for me. You don't have to be proud, but you have to accept it." Her voice cracked when she said, "Sophia, I am proud. I've been proud for years. I just didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to undo what we did." That surprised me. I hadn't expected her to say that. I said, "We have a lot to work through, Mom. This doesn't fix everything, but it's a start." She said, "I understand. Thank you. Thank you for being bigger than we were." I wired them $60,000 the next day. The extra $5,000 was for immediate expenses I knew they'd have. We started therapy 2 weeks later. It's been 8 months since that phone call. Therapy is hard, really hard. There are sessions where my mother cries the entire time, sessions where my father can't speak because he's so ashamed, sessions where I'm so angry I want to walk out. But we keep showing up. My parents are different now, humbled, broken in some ways, but trying. My mother asked me about my work last month. Actually asked, actually listened. She said, "I don't understand most of what you do, but I can see it's important. I can see you were meant to do this." It's not much, but it's something. My father said to me last week, "You were wrong. I was so wrong about you. You became exactly who you were meant to be, and we almost destroyed you for it." We're building something now. It's not the relationship I wished we had when I was 17, but it's real. And maybe that's better than the fantasy. If you're watching this and you have parents who rejected you for choosing your own path, I want you to hear this clearly. You don't owe them anything. Not your success, not your money, not your forgiveness. I chose to help mine, but I did it on my terms, with boundaries, with the full understanding that helping them doesn't erase 14 years of abandonment. Some people will say I'm too forgiving, others will say I'm too hard, but this is my story, my choice, and I made it for me, not for them. My parents said I'd be nothing without them. They were wrong. I became everything without them, and that's a truth they have to live with every day. My name is Dr. Sophia Chen. I'm 36 years old. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. I save lives, and I built that life entirely on my own. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me what you overcame. We're all in this together. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell, because I share stories like this every week. Real stories about real people who refuse to let anyone else define their worth. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. And remember, you are enough exactly as you are.